Kia ora everyone. I thought I would check in as we finish up the Easter weekend, which I know wouldn't have been a normal Easter weekend for many of you on account of us all being in alert level 4, but I hope wherever you are that you've managed to maintain some of the traditions that you might have as a family or as a wider extended whānau. I've seen a bit online of what people have been up to. I even know some friends who have had virtual dinners together if they've been on their own, and I know people have found really creative ways to try and come together in some way, be it live congregations and so on. So I hope everyone's been looking after themselves. I thought that I would give you a very quick update on some of what we talked about in the daily press conference. Sorry, everyone, it's been a long day. The daily press conference today. So some of you may have jumped on and saw at 1 o'clock today. I was out with Dr. Bloomfield, again, giving an update on the numbers and just answering any questions. If you missed that, we had 19 new cases today. Most of those confirmed, 15 of them confirmed cases, 4 probable cases. So again, that 19, that tells us that we're on the right track. At this stage, what we want to be doing is continuing to see those numbers come down. So rather than those first 2 weeks where we saw them rise, then where we saw them plateau a bit, we really want to see them start coming down over this next week. And what we're also looking for is where those cases have come from. You'll recognise that we talk about this thing called clusters sometimes. What that's referring to is outbreaks, and in the case of New Zealand, there have been outbreaks that have occurred, for instance, within, say, a school. We've had some private events like a wedding, and we've also had some in aged care facilities. Now, where those outbreaks occur, knowing how people have basically picked up the virus is really important to us, because if we have a case where we can't figure out how someone came to have COVID, that's a bit of a warning sign for us. So that's what we're also looking for in the data this week. Because keeping in mind, very soon we'll be making a decision over whether or not we are in a position to move out of alert level 4, which is obviously where we are all at the moment. So a quick preview of some of the information you'll hear coming out from us over the coming days. So tomorrow, Treasury is going to release some of its scenario, some of the scenarios that they've been working up around the impact of COVID-19 on the New Zealand economy. And so tomorrow at the press conference that I do, I'll be having the Minister of Finance come and join so that he can answer questions about that. Keeping in mind, of course, it's very difficult for us to tell what the long-term impacts will be. Our focus on having a strategy which says we go hard and we go early was, of course, focused on preserving and looking after New Zealanders' health, but we also determined that looking after New Zealanders' health would be the best thing we could do in the long run for New Zealand's economy, just so that we can try and get back to a position as soon as we can, and getting people back into work and so on as soon as we're able to. On Wednesday, Grant Robertson, our Minister of Finance, will be making a speech to Business New Zealand online. So as you would expect in this current environment. And then on Thursday, I'm going to be sharing a bit more detail around our alert level framework. So you remember we put this out some time ago. You remember the different alerts on the large yellow table that we set out. Now, it was quite high level, so it didn't have some of the specifics that everyone's looking for. Like, for instance, what specific workplaces can and cannot open at alert level 3? How does that look different than alert level 2? We just didn't spend long enough at those alert levels for people to get a real sense of that. So we're working up all of that detail for both businesses. We're working up that detail for the education sector, also for what transport looks like, even recreational activity and healthcare. And so I just came off a Zoom call where we spent a couple of hours going through all of that detail, and we'll keep working on that. Ministers will also be reaching out to specific sectors to work on some of that detail too. And on Thursday, we'll be announcing it. Now, that gives a bit of time for businesses to plan around how they'd be affected at those different alert levels as well. Then, of course, several days later, on the 20th of April, after we have a cabinet meeting, you'll hear us make an announcement about what we expect to happen around whether we will move out of alert level 4 or not, what will happen next, and we're looking to really signpost from there what's going to happen for us on the 20th of April. We can't do it till then because we're using the daily data that we get, and as I say, looking out for things like community transmission and what our cases are doing, so we can only do that really right up until we get to a point where we need to make a decision. So we'll do that on the 20th, and if there is to be a change, that won't then come to effect for another 48 hours. So that's a little outline of what you can expect. I'll make sure that I come back online for a Facebook Live on Thursday when we announce a bit more of that detail and guidance around those different alert levels. Again, I expect that people will have questions and extra detail that they want, so we will be putting out some principles of how it will work with some examples. Really try and answer as much as we can straight off the bat, but if you do have questions, we'll try and pick those up as much as we can. Keeping in mind, of course, that all of these different alert levels we're using to make sure that we are responding to the position New Zealand's in at the time. The way I've really described alert level 3 is it will still have restrictions. It's really a period for us to just check that we really are in control of the virus again, that we're continuing to bring down those cases as part of our strategy to stamp out COVID in New Zealand, and be really confident that we're exactly where we need to be. So it will still have quite a few controls and restrictions in place. So I do want to make sure people are really prepared for that. We won't have a situation whenever we come out of level 4, it will not be back to normal life. It will be staged and we will go through transitions. But I can assure you that nothing is more restrictive than what we're in now. We will only get better as in easing things up, but it will be done in a transitioned way and not just overnight. So that's a little bit of an update. Sorry, everyone, I've been focusing on what I'm saying, and I've seen some of the questions that have been flying through. I've seen lots of people recommending what they would like to access at level 3, and I know there's lots of things that people will be missing. Actually, feel free to share below. What is it that you've been missing at alert level 4? What is it that you've really been struggling with? I see someone's put up a question about funeral requirements, and I know that has been one of the things I found so devastating, some of the stories there. And I can assure you that within the principles of what we're trying to achieve, we are really looking at what we can do to ease some of those most painful areas. But we do have to still keep in mind that alert level 3 is about still being in a position where we need to keep getting transmission down, and that's the judgment that we keep making, because the sooner we can do that, the sooner we can actually get to being a little bit closer to normal. If we don't achieve that, then we'll be in this halfway point, which is really hard for everyone, for longer. So that's the trade-off. We've gone hard and early so we can get back to normality, hopefully quicker than what some other countries might. You'll see that in some countries they're really in lockdown for very long periods of time. So look, that's a very quick update for you all at the end of this Easter weekend. I know it hasn't been normal for so many, but I hope you've still managed to bring in some of the traditions that your family might have, and if you are on your own, that you've been able to connect with family or friends as well. Thanks for joining me though. I better get back to some parental duties. I didn't tell my family where I was squirreling off to hide. Usually this time of night's a little bit hectic in our household, and I'm sure it is for lots of parents out there who are watching right now. So sorry for badly timing this Facebook Live. I'll try not to do it at that crucial period next time. Otherwise, thanks everyone for tuning in. Please continue to look after yourselves out there. And my last word is that we are doing really well. We just need to keep going. It's so important. As the Minister of Sport said to me, we don't want to lose our halftime advantage by changing tack or losing our strategy. We've just got to keep sticking with it. Till then, please give me your feedback. What is it that you've found the hardest about level 4? Let me know what it is that's been tough for you. And I'll keep, of course, thinking about all of those issues as we try and work up something that's going to keep New Zealand as safe as possible. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks for joining me.